And I'm sure Brian will be willing to take some questions. And we have a little roving microphone here tonight, and Dave tells me. So would anyone like to ask Professor Brian Havel any questions about anything you've heard tonight?
It's all truths.
Brian, I read your book a long time ago, enjoyed it immensely, and certainly enjoyed your eloquence here tonight, and you did your father proud, and we all enjoyed it immensely, as you could imagine from the great applause that you heard there. It was heartfelt. Your dad survived in Czechoslovakia during the war years. Could you enlighten me? Maybe you said it in the book, but I can't remember. What did he do during the war?
Well, for a good part of the time during the war, he was attending the Art Academy. But he was also forced to, as I mentioned in the talk, he was also forced to spend time in the mines, as all students were. In his case, it was the coal mines of Western Bohemia. And that's where he developed the hearing problem through the explosion that occurred in the mine. So he was under surveillance throughout the war. Now, toward the end of the war, he joined a group of resistance group, and the details, frankly, are a bit sketchy as to what was going on, but he was moving artillery on motorbikes back and forth between various points of the Czech resistance. And that was at the very end of the war, because at that point, of course, the Sudetenland was being returned to Czech control. And so he had a busy war, but he left in 1947 at the end of the war, and of course, at that time, the communists had become the predominant force in the country, as Mr. Patrick was only too well aware. Yes.
I know your dad was, sorry, I read your book, it was brilliant. I know your dad was an only child, but do you have any cousins? Did he have any cousins? Did he have any relatives in Czechoslovakia?
Yes, we have relatives in Czechoslovakia, but you know, he was an only child, and hence the startling fact that he had 6 children when he came to Ireland, and brought all of them back to Czechoslovakia, and in the communist era, in any event, it was a source of great astonishment to his relatives that he had been raising this large family. We stay in touch with some of the Czech relatives, but there are obviously no living uncles or aunts or anything like that. So the connection with Czechoslovakia has weakened since his passing, I have to say. On the other hand, the government of the Czech Republic has agreed to publish a translation of Maestro of Crystal, and I wrote a long piece for the official government magazine. So from the government's perspective, there is interest in the connection, and I'm very glad that that's going to happen. Should I let folks get some tea?
Right, could I just make a
yes, James.
myself? It's wonderful, like Karika said, to hear the story of your dad and the wonderful contribution he made to our city. I'm not aware if there has been any commemoration of this wonderful man in our city. Like, why shouldn't the city do something to commemorate in living memory of this wonderful man and what he has done for Waterford? I think we should, maybe it's something people should, but not even maybe, it's definitely something we should do as a city. I mean, Waterford is synonymous with Waterford Crystal, and also I think it's a wonderful tribute to somebody from another country to come to Ireland and to, it shows the globalization wasn't in there. This man comes from the Czech Republic, Czechoslovakia, and makes a wonderful contribution to Ireland. I think it's very symbolic of the way the world has gone and will go in the future. I salute your dad for what he has done for Ireland and for Waterford in particular.
Very good. And of course, Ireland in the intervening years has become one of the world's most open economies, a globalized economy. And I suspect that if we could have a sort of counterfactual with respect to history, this would be an ideal country today to start an international business. And I think that the timing of the creation of Waterford Crystal perhaps was not the most fortuitous back in the 1940s, but nonetheless a huge and important company was created. So, thank you, James, for those very nice thoughts.
Brian, Ken McNamara here. Was there any stage in your life that you thought you might follow in his footsteps into the industry?
I beg your pardon?
Was there any stage that you would have liked to follow your dad into the industry, into the crystal industry?
My brother did. My younger brother, Miroslav, followed him into the industry, but he seemed not to want it for me. I don't know why. So I became a historian of the industry rather than a practitioner, and I've enjoyed that. I think it was a wonderful, it's so very different. I spent my time as an aviation lawyer, so this is very different. The only connection I had was when I saw the Concorde that he did. I thought that was a wonderful piece, but I am not a glass technician or anything like that, and I just find it fascinating as a subject.
Did you ever watch him at home doing designs?
Yeah, we managed to hold on to some of those, and I think I used some of them in the book. I always found it fascinating. I found my father fascinating both from the technical perspective of what he did, but also his personal story, which I think always gripped me when I was growing up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jonathan.
Harry, what do you see as the future of Waterford glass, Waterford crystal, 10 years hence or whatever?
The future, perhaps.
It's impossible to venture a prognosis as to what's going to happen. You know, one of the things that I was sorry about was that the government might have intervened. And one of the grounds in which the government might have intervened was because there is a UN Convention on the Protection of Cultural Property and Cultural Expression and Cultural Heritage. And if you read that document, it's an international treaty, you will see provisions of that treaty which directly bore on the survival of Waterford Crystal as an art form. And I raised the subject at the time with some lawyers in Dublin, and I thought it might be something where some pressure points could be brought on the government, but it didn't happen. And I regret that. I think that the government saw it in much more commercial terms, rather than looking at it as part of our cultural heritage. And I think if there is, in the future, a recognition of the cultural position of Waterford glass in this country and in this city, that will make a difference to the way in which the company emerges in the future. I remain optimistic. I think this new purchase has shown that there is commercial vitality in the brand, and let's hope that that continues into the future. Thank you very much indeed.
Biscuits if anyone cares to partake, and thank you once again to Brian for that wonderful, wonderful talk. Love to hear something else sometime. And just to let you all know, our next, as I said, our lectures are finished now until September, but our next venture forth is our coach trip, which unfortunately is totally booked up. There are already, I think, a list of names, I'm told, of people waiting to get on. The details are, and you know, it's to Castletown House, the largest private residence ever to be built in Ireland, beautiful place up in County Kildare, and then on to the Corrick Camp Military Museum, so it probably will be a great day out. And for those that weren't lucky enough to get on it, well, we'll come back and let you know all about it, and today you'll have to make your own way up on Saturday.